Let's consider a discussion with the Hindu. The Hindu believes in a onist worldview. That is to say, a worldview in which there is no distinction between creator and creation. Just a combination of both the divine and infinite with the finite and temporal. All is Brahman and Brahman is all, the impersonal God from which all reality extends, and thus man bears the spark of the divine, the Atman Brahman identity. It is for this reason that Hindus must be indifferent when it concerns morality, because all is Brahman and Brahman is all. Pouring a hot cup of tea over a person's head cannot be wrong because it is simply an extension of Brahman being poured over another extension of Brahman. In other words, all things are a manifestation of the impersonal God that pervades all of reality. And therefore, there's no such thing as good or evil. However, the Hindu does not actually live this way. He lives in a way that presupposes a moral law. And although he may not keep it consistently, he also does not disregard it completely in his daily living. Perhaps he may be indifferent to pouring a hot cup of tea over his colleague, but he would be enraged if someone were to do the same to him. Well, why does the Hindu not live out the implications of his worldview if followed consistently? Because God has placed the law in the hearts of men. But as the Apostle Paul writes in Romans chapter 1, verse 25, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu scriptures, we find ample evidence that the Hindu, in fact, had a moral inclination, despite the warrior Arjuna in the story being argued out of it by his false deity Vishnu. When faced with a war against his own kin, his own family, Arjuna laments, "If we killed these murderers, evil like theirs would cling to us. Even if they, mastered by greed, are blind to the consequences of the family's destruction, of friendships lost to treachery, how are we not to comprehend that we must turn back from evil?" Hinduism cannot make sense of morality. It cannot make sense of good and evil, and given that the caste system is a distinctly Hindu teaching, they cannot intellectually justify why the rejection of the caste system is wrong, when in a pantheistic universe where all is God and God is all, there is no such thing as right or wrong. Everything is essentially relativistic and subjective, but we know as rational and logical human beings that truth is absolute. The morality is absolute. And to suggest that all things are relative, that what is true for me may not be true for you, would violate the law of non-contradiction, one of the laws of logic. The law of non-contradiction is that one or two or more contradictory statements cannot be true at the same time and in the same sense. It is a law of logic. And the laws of logic draw out from the very source of God himself, because it is, after all, his created world. Hinduism, therefore, requires a complete abandonment from logic and rationality in order to embrace its doctrines. However, man cannot abandon his intellect because he is created by the true God as an intellectual, rational, and moral being.